The Joe Francis of podcasts is back. I'm going to showcase my skill for complaining about something I actually like. In this case, Brandon Sanderson's second book in the Stormlight Archives, Words of Radiance. This episode is unofficially brought to you by Marlboro Reds. Are cigarettes disgusting? Yes, but Marlboro Reds are the most disgusting, and you have to be the best at something. Those were words to live by, spoken by the Marlboro Man, and words to die by, too. In a hospital bed, with lung cancer, all hooked up to tubes and machines as his family watched him wither away bedside. Marlboro Reds, tobacco so good it will take your breath away. So, this is my 7th Brandon Sanderson book, and I'm just getting around to my first review, yet I'm going to find a way to criticize him for not making sense. So bear with me, as this review isn't just of Words of Radiance, but really sort of a referendum on Sanderson in totality. I feel like the more Sanderson I read, the less impressed I am, unfortunately. That's not to say he's bad, he's brilliant. It's just that he has some quirks that really get under my skin. Anyway, I read this book, and I finished it feeling like, yeah, it was alright, which really is a crazy reaction to a 1,300-page book. Imagine you grew up near the ocean in Massachusetts, and then you joined the caravans heading west on the Oregon Trail. It took almost a year to traverse the country. Your sister died of snakebite. Your mom loses an eye when your raft crashes and constantly complains about her eye patch not fitting snugly. Then, finally, you arrive in Oregon, and it looks just like Massachusetts? I mean, what is the fucking point of this epic journey? I haven't read a lot of 1,000-plus page books. The Stand comes to mind by Stephen King. That book was epic. It told of the end of the world, of the survivors, of them coming to grips with their new bleak realities, of them migrating towards two sources of power, good versus evil, and ultimately a showdown that could determine the fate of humanity. It earned the right to be that long. This book, what happened? Honestly, I can't remember that much, and I just finished. There was an assassin, he liked the color white, some people discovered new powers, there's some political strife, some things happened with the weird insect people, some people undiscovered their powers before rediscovering their powers. There's just no reason that this book had to be more than, say, 500 pages. And if it was 500 pages, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. It's just not enough important things happening. So instead of me feeling like this was a pretty good book, which it was, I just feel fucking aggravated that he took so long to tell a pretty good story. So yeah, Sanderson, the prose. He's incredibly creative, genius level. It seems like every year he's creating a new world that feels interesting and unique. He has a plan. He's a bit famous for his endings. He knows how to string you along, confuse you, mislead you, set you up, and then wham, the last 100 pages or so are usually a whirlwind. The cons. He's incredibly prolific, and with that comes an uneasy feeling of formulaic storytelling and repetition. A lot of his magic systems feel similar to me. A lot of his character tropes feel recycled, and one of the things that bothers me the most about his writing, besides the constant YA feel, is he's not witty. It seems like every book he has at least one character that loves to make jokes and use sarcasm and show off their wit, especially when they're about to die. It's never funny, it's never cute, it's grating, and honestly it's jarring because whatever character is doing that, I just think it's him. I just hear cutesy Brandon Sanderson coming through the character, and it really annoys me. In this book, it was Shallan. I mean, they're literally about to get eaten by a giant monster, and she'll say some shit like, well, she's a big girl, isn't she? Must be a girl, since it's a monster. Oh, God. I loved the Mistborn trilogy. That was the first Brandon Sanderson I read. The second arc, I only read one, because I loathed it as it again featured that same banal, bantering, this time romance-flavored. The first Stormlight Archive book I really enjoyed. Cool and interesting world building, intriguing characters. The only thing I really hated was the idea that only women could read. What the fuck? This feels like male feminist pandering to me, and beyond that, it's just ridiculous. If that was the case, then in this world, women would hold all the power since they would have a monopoly on information. It just doesn't work at all. And I think Sanderson might have realized this in hindsight because in this book, he hardly even mentions it and also introduces the idea that men use glyphs to communicate through writing. Weak. Sanderson also loves to invent new things such as plants, animals, eating utensils, you name it. But a lot of the time, it just feels arbitrary, and again, it grates on me. Here's an example from page 8402. Listeners, both male-in and female-in, raised hands to her as she passed. So few remained. The humans were relentless in their pursuit of vengeance. Seriously, Sanderson? Male-in and female-in? Just cut the crap and call them male and female. That is not creative and just feels so contrived. That's not a cactus, it's a dractus, because it's even more dry. Oh, and over there in the sky you can see clouds. They're like clouds, sure, but more pillowy. Ugh. Also, unmasculine? I don't know why this bothers me so much. It's a word, but why not just say feminine? It's really weird to me. If you could just change that, it would unbother me. So, another thing about this book that bothered me, the short excerpts before chapters. He does this in a lot of his books where he gives you like little bits of information that don't necessarily make sense at first, but as you progress through the book, eventually they start to sort of reveal part of the plot. Except in this book, they're just rubbish. I mean, every single short excerpt is just useless gibberish, and I ended up skipping them. Now, all those negative things aside, I didn't hate this book. It was pretty good. Like I said, I just don't like the idea of spending so much time reading a 1,300-page pretty good book. As I find the 5-star system a bit limiting, I like to use my arbitrary rating system, SLICK, which stands for story, language, ideas, and characters on a 10-point scale. Here's how I rated Words of Radiance. For story, I gave it a 7. It's a good story, just desperately needs an editor. For language, I gave him a 7. His writing is fine, even if everyone is sauntering around trying to be witty. For ideas, I gave it a 7. Despite some of the duds and even the spren, which I really don't enjoy, there are some really fun fantasy ideas in here. For characters, I gave it an 8. I really enjoy Dalinar and some of the Bridgemen, but Shallan is not funny, and I thought Kaladin's arc sort of crashed and burned in this book. I also strive for a contrived comparison with every book. This book is a 17-year-long marriage. You're married, it's okay. You took a trip to Florida once and saw 2 stingrays mating off a deep-sea fishing rig. You were with her when her brother Richard, with the horrible coffee breath, died after his triple bypass surgery. You even flirted with her cousin Lucy during a line dance at a friend's wedding in a barn. Yes, a barn. Then one day someone says to you, "Wow, you've been married almost 20 years. That's incredible. How does it feel?" And you just go full Larry David and say, Okay, if you like this review, great. If you didn't, probably even better, share it to all your friends and say, listen to this guy. He's an asshole, and that will probably get me more views. Would really appreciate it. And tune in next week for another R-rated review.